Hey, what's going on, guys? Steve with Interrupted Outdoors. Got this episode that I've been hearing a lot about. Everybody said, when's the next episode coming out? Here it is. We are getting ready for turkey season 2021 here in Maryland. It's coming up on April 19th. I know the Florida opener's happening, Georgia, Alabama. There's been a number of awesome birds shot already. And have Brandon Caton here today to talk turkeys. He's one of the two guys. You all know Clay. He's been on the show before. But Brandon is the one that's really mentored Clay and I in our turkey hunting. So it's come a long way, and we got a lot to learn, but I'm thankful he's here. He's officially, if you want to call that, field staff for Interrupted Outdoors, which we joke about a lot, but it's seriously, it's somebody, if I'm in the woods, I'm going to be out with Brandon when it comes to turkey hunting, and hopefully we'll get some more deer hunting together here in the future, so working on that. So anyway, welcome to the show, man.
Well, thank you for having me. Long-time listener, first time here. I have to hear Clay most days, but,
he is just this lingering, ringing sound in all the listeners' ears, which is good, man. It'd be hard to think about going on some of these trips without Clay there. So
I would agree.
It's awesome. But hey, we're going to talk turkey today, and coming up, we just finished filming a little bit outside. A little bit of shooting our bows, talking setups that is going to be up on the YouTube channel, some of the things that we take out in the field. So be on the lookout for that as well. But let's get into talking this season. We've had a lot of good hunts in the past, and what are we looking towards in 2021? What's something new that we're going to be tackling as a new challenge?
Well, the archery. Making it happen with the bow and arrow this year is something we've kicked around for a lot of years now, and
yeah,
I think you and I are both to the point where we have the property, the knowledge, and the experience to at least dive in and try.
100%.
We might fall on our face.
It's going to be interesting. But it's a slick setup that you found that for a little bit of cover. What was the name of that?
It's called a HIPS blind, HIPS. It's made by Lynch and Company, and it attaches to your stabilizer on front of your bow. And I don't know, it's 2.5 foot by 3 foot maybe.
Yeah.
And it's a blind. It's got a little hole that you can see and your arrow can travel through, and man, it's such a great setup. And it took me forever to find something that, in your mind you have something that's going to work, but finding something that's actually practical and someone's already made that's what it was. I mean, it took me a long time to find that. We talked about it outside.
Yeah.
I looked for some stuff that I knew was existing in the past, but it, I guess, been discontinued, and this was only a limited run too. So once turkey season's done, I don't think they really produce them.
Okay.
So you have to get it while the season is running and while they're being produced, and then you can have them. It's not like, hey, I'm going to buy one in the fall.
Right. Well, and as popular as, hunting and stalking behind a fan has become, it changes game a little bit. Now, I will say, make sure you check your regulations wherever you're listening, because some states you can't do that and actually stalk the birds like that. I think Pennsylvania is one of those states that you're not able to do that in, actually. But yeah, make sure you check regs about it when we're talking about stalking on birds. We have some private land that we know who should and shouldn't be there, that's a game changer. But in terms of, we filmed a little bit of that setup out there, and we weren't even in deep cover with that thing, and the footprint that it covers to stay behind is pretty awesome. I hope we can keep our movement to a minimum to be able to get a shot off on that.
Yeah, I think so. Even just in the short time we brainstormed over how to be comfortable with it, I think we came a long way with the bow rest, having it on the tree. You're going to be able to move it left to right. And the bucket, where you're off the ground, you're sitting up a little bit, it's going to give you some stabilization when you go to shoot, because being on your knees or sitting Indian style or on your butt, I think it would make a difficult shot with a bow.
Yeah.
So being up, I feel good with what we came up with out there. And everyone is, any equipment that you get, turkeys,
you better
field test it.
Yeah.
Don't go out in the woods and be like, oh, how's this thing go together? Trial and error.
Yeah.
Because there's some things.
And we put it on both our bows out there. I feel like we walked through that setup pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I still think we'll probably figure out something different that first time we're out there, but I feel like that how how it goes, like, maybe we should have done it this way.
I think, the stabilizer thing was important too. You don't want to go past 6 inches much more than that because it becomes unstable.
Yeah.
Again,
And just getting it tight enough in the wind, that thing's like a sail. That was something we saw out there really quickly.
Yeah.
That just little things like that make a big difference once we
for sure
get talking about, the practical, getting the shot off and just drawing in general.
Yeah, and again, we talked about what kind of birds we're going to deal with. And early in the season, they're not going to be as pressured. They may not be as spooked to seeing this large movie screen of camouflage moving around here.
Right.
So we'll have to see how that turns out. But
yeah,
it's going to be exciting either way. We may there's no doubt we're going to learn a lot about ourselves and about turkeys.
Yeah, what kind of hunters we actually think we are. And and we're going to bring it to you this year. Brandon and I were committed to filming this year, and so we're going to try and bring all of these episodes of being out chasing these birds around Maryland this year to you, which should be an interesting endeavor. Just being committed to actually getting the footage, which is a whole different mindset. I learned that this year. Deer hunt was the first year I really became serious about having the camera out in the woods, and I didn't get nearly the opportunities and footage just because of learning that workflow and that added element. And it's constantly learning with this stuff.
Yeah, and I'm starting with the turkey phase, but deer season as well. I'll probably have a lot of those trials and tribulations that you had, and I have a specific deer that, later on down the road, I'm sure we'll talk about, that I've had a long history with, and he's still there, and he is my only goal this year when it comes to deer. So I'm sure we'll talk about that another time, but I'm sure I'm going to learn. So don't get upset if you don't have a lot of footage of that.
No, we'll put it all together without a doubt. Well, before we talk specific tactics or anything, how did you get into turkey hunting?
So I didn't get into turkey hunting until I was much older, and my brother took me, and it wasn't even a awesome hunt. I can't even say like the first couple times I went was awesome. It was just, I fell in love with it with my brother because the interaction that you have, and then you start diving into it and seeing the dynamics that are there, like the calling and so much. And every year I learn something new, or I'm like, oh, that doesn't work. Whether it's something learned good or something learned bad. But
like waiting for a bird to come all the way in so your buddy can get a shot and then nobody gets a shot.
See, I knew that lesson because I've hunted with Clay a long time. And, Clay is, he's just one of the best to have with you. But he and I have a understanding. If the shot can be had, you take it.
Yeah, yep.
And you sacrificed yourself. I'm trying to put a good spin on this.
Yeah, there's not too many good.
You sacrificed yourself for the good of the team because, in that particular hunt, we thought there was more than one bird.
Yeah.
He made it very difficult to decipher that he was one bird by himself with the noise that he was making. And I didn't even see him step out on the road. You waited, and then something happened, and
I think he saw me. I think,
Had we had a replay button, you would have had a bird that day.
Yeah.
Because wasn't it your birthday, or was it Clay's?
It was Clay's birthday.
It was Clay's birthday. I knew it was somebody's birthday.
Well, and that's part of the reason. It's like, I want this guy to.
Yeah. And Clay also was, we both were, I think, angry at you because when we go out, we're a team. And if we make it happen, we make it happen.
Right.
And I think we still made it happen that day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We had those three come in later in the morning. You were able to get one of them.
Yeah, and it was just like, it was one of those things where he came in on a string. I couldn't have made it any more perfect. And you made a decision to wait. And, as much of a hard time we gave you afterwards, we didn't know.
Nope. And I thought that bird was going to come in and give a full show and
So did
do the
we.
whole nine, and it just didn't like something. And I was sticking out just a little bit far. I think in the end, it just picked me off, and it made it unsteady. And even in that moment, there was still probably time. I mean, I had to shoot through a little bit of brush, but it would have – he was only 20 yards. I mean, he was right there.
Oh, that TSS.
It would have tore through it.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been a problem. But, I remember vividly coming down that road and saying, hey, look, we're about halfway down the road. Let me go ahead and see what's going on. Because I hadn't scouted that at all.
Right.
I just knew from history, like, occasionally there's a bird that likes to hang out in this area because it's tall timber, there's some water, there's tax ditches everywhere. And sure enough, we couldn't have been 100 yards from him when we stopped.
No.
And there was
we set up quick.
Yeah, there was a couple times where he made us think that he was going to come to the road before he even got to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you remember, he comes down this logging lane 10 yards behind Clay and I.
I mean, when he was popping off right behind us, I mean, it was crazy being right there.
Because at the point he got right behind Clay and I, we could hear him spitting and drumming. Mm-hmm. And I can't do anything but sit there. You can't turn around and look.
No.
And he kept going for whatever reason, and he wanted to come out past the three of us. It's almost like he knew. He's like, hey, I'm going to bypass you guys and go out here. I don't think we had a decoy, did we?
We had one on the road, but it was, I mean, that was out in front of us. So where he popped out, he was still a good 30 yards from that decoy. I mean, he had to cover some open territory to get to it.
Yeah, and I mean, it goes to show, like, he saw something he didn't like, and I think we were talking about outside different calls. That bird wouldn't answer to anything but a box call, and when he answered, he was on it,
and he was coming quick. I mean, the distance that bird closed. I mean, you figure from the time we first heard him gobble and say, "Oh, he's close," to put that decoy out to kind of try and brush ourselves up. And you guys were just tucked in a little bit farther because we thought he was going to come from that opening down below us where he was coming from.
Right.
And to the fact that he walked behind us to swing around the way he did, I mean, I would have never predicted that to be the case.
So neither would I. But now that's like the third Tom that has done that exact thing in that area. Like there's a parallel woods lane that they will travel, and they won't come out on that main road until it's time. And he did that. So now we know,
There won't be – well, I mean, they've heard from the story last year. That taught me that lesson, and that lesson is the only reason I got that bird up in Maine last year.
Yeah.
Because it was as soon as I saw that head, those guys weren't even set up. It was like – that selfish moment, redemption was happening because it was a disappointing day to that big Tom that just got to walk away.
It's not, I mean, I think all of us hunting together, as long as we have, it's not selfish anymore. Now, if there was 4 of them back there, and that was a little different, but the solo guy steps out on the road, the first person to take the shot,
better
take the shot.
I mean, I mean, that brings up a good point. It is a good transition. I talked about this on an episode I had with Doug talking about elk hunting and planning and the people you're with and having understandings about who's shooting, who's not shooting, what does success look like for your group of people that are out there. And those are all conversations that you really need to have. And I think some of that comes with experience when you're hunting with guys and know maybe what might get somebody upset, what doesn't. Because, I mean, look, you pursue these birds – we put everything into the time that we're out there.
Oh, for sure.
Over a hobby that's extremely enjoyable.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's more than that to us when you get down, to the core of it, I guess. But it still is something enjoyable we choose to go out and do with our time.
For sure. And, a lot of people, I'm the most, you've been turkey hunting with me for a few years now. I'm the most selfless in the sense of I don't even carry a gun half the time.
Yeah, we saw that last year with those 3 birds.
Yeah, Clay gave me a hard time about not having a gun, but to me it has become the chase and not the harvest. And to see other people that have tried hard and been not successful, because turkey hunting, I mean –
These Easterns, man, are something.
They're tough, and some of it is strategy, some of it is dumb luck, and some of it is you can't explain. I mean, there's a mixed bag, but strategy is a lot of it. The calling is, I truly, I wish I could say that it was more, but I think the calling really is more like 20% of it. Can you overcall? Yeah. Can you not call enough? Yep. Can you make the wrong call? Yes. Does that matter? Yeah. Is it going to end your day? No. If you know where he's going, or you're in the immediate area of where he wants to go, your chances increase greatly. Going out there doing your homework in the morning, in the evening time, knowing where he's roosted, knowing your property, knowing the way they travel, knowing their behavior, what they want to do, where they want to be. You know, those birds usually go back to where they roost at some point during the day. And, you know, one thing I will tell any young turkey hunter or someone who's not been successful, stay patient.
Yeah.
Stay patient. 9 o'clock and on is a magical hour. Those birds may come on the ground and they may be henned up and give you like 10 minutes of heart-throbbing, just good time of gobbling, and you don't see them. And you get disappointed and you're like, oh, man, what am I doing wrong?
Right.
I'm not doing anything wrong. He's just not into you right now.
It's a wild animal, you know.
Yeah.
They're doing their thing.
And, you know, you have to think about, all right, what's the next move? Do I stay here? Do I go? I'm going to tell you, 8 times out of 10, you stay right where you're at. If he was there, he's still around. He might be quiet. He might be doing his thing, but he's still around, and he's going to come back alive. I can't tell you how many times over the last probably 5 or 6 years that I've come to this epiphany, I guess you could say. 9 o'clock, I mean, the show's really just getting started because a lot of those birds are leaving hens around that time. The hens are going to nest up. They're going to do their own thing. And, you know, you're over there singing some sweet music.
And turning them on, man.
That's all it takes.
Yeah.
How many times have we been together and killed a bird in the late morning?
Well, the incident where we were just talking about where I didn't shoot, we had that one off, and then we moved down the road, 200 yards and set up. And, I mean, we were hearing birds way off behind us working around, and we thought they'd come in, and they never did, and sat there and sat there and sat there. And all of a sudden, man, these 3 come right down the road, the complete opposite direction. And it's just, I mean, we sat there a long time that day. That was, we were playing, I think it was close to 11 when you shot that bird.
Yeah.
I think it.
But patience and perseverance paid off
100%.
Because, again, that was an area that I had only had some history with, didn't have any seasonal scouting, but had some time in there, and I knew that chances are good. I just have to be patient. And we were, and we had the 3 company in there, and or 3 stooges, however you want to call it. Clay.
But Clay was asleep, so that doesn't count.
Yeah, I mean, but making fun of him being asleep does count. And that easily passes the time.
Yeah.
I mean, but again, be patient and having that perseverance to hang tough. And you know what? If it's not happening and you really want to move, go to another piece of property. If you have it, go. Like a lot of times when we move, we'll leave properties. We just won't even waste sitting there if we do move. But there's not very often that we move.
We're gonna move for birds, and we're also not going to leave birds. Like if you got one working, a lot of times, I mean, that's something I've learned is if they're 300 yards off, don't be quick to just get up and go find them.
Ooh, no.
Wait them out, because I've done that before. I've seen that. I've had conversation with guys that they just get a little too ambitious on that bird, where maybe that's not coming on a rope to you, but if you give it a little bit of time, it's amazing how they'll circle and work an area, and you may have that bird come in.
Yeah, and birds are going to do what birds are going to do, and a lot of what people don't realize is you're asking him to do something that Mother Nature doesn't want him to do. You're asking him to come to you. That's not what that gobble's for. That gobble's for you to go to him.
Right.
And none of the people I've ever met are stealthy enough to just sneak up on him. But, he's gobbling because he wants the females to come to him.
Right.
He's over there doing his thing. I guarantee 100% of the time, if he's gobbling, he's strutting. Mm-hmm. And not at the same time, but if he's over there gobbling, and you hear him, he's
trying to put a show on.
Yeah, he wants you to come over there. He wants you to see what he's got. Check his beard out, his spurs and his plumage. Come check me out. And you're asking him to come to you. You're playing hard to get, and some of them just aren't going to do it. Them older birds know, like, hey man, I'm okay over here. I'm going to stay in my lane.
Right.
So moving closer, and one of the things I've learned too is you can never judge that distance of that gobble. I don't care. Maybe some of the old timers can, but it always seems like, man, he's like 50 yards. No, he's more like 100 yards.
When you talk about wind and the direction their head is facing when they actually rip that gobble off, and I mean the best that I've come up with is the only thing that helps is you get a bird that's giving you multiple gobbles, and you can determine if it's getting louder or softer.
Yeah.
And if you get one gobble and it's like, oh, I think he was 300 yards, you don't know how far he was.
No way.
You might say he was far, but he might be 50 yards and the wind was blowing and he was just looking the opposite direction.
Absolutely.
And you don't know. And that's one of the things, that getting into this for me, it's like when you hear that gobble, you better be ready. When you decide to or make the decision to go ahead and call to that bird, you better be ready for it to happen right then.
Yeah, and I think another thing or a mistake that people make is calling too early in the morning. I know one of the things that I've hopefully pressed upon you and Clay is, like, in the morning when they're in that tree gobbling, let them gobble. Let them sing. Let them do whatever they have to do. Mm-hmm. It's that silent period when you think they're out of the tree. That's usually when you want to start a call. I try, and again, it's one of those things where you don't know because they could be moving around, and they do move around in the trees.
Yeah.
They'll turn one way or another. The wind could be blowing, it could be echoing through the woods, and you think they're on the ground. They're still in the tree, and you start calling to them in the tree. They, my experience anyway, they get weird over that. Mm-hmm. You wait until you can confirm that they've made it out of the tree and they're on that ground, because then
they're looking to group up.
Yeah, that's what they want to do. That's when the hens start making their noises and stuff. Now, there are some tree yelps and stuff like that because we've heard them.
Oh, yeah, we were on top of those, that 3 that year.
And, but you could tell the difference of that aggressive, like...
Oh, it's very distinct. It's one of those things, I think, talking to somebody that maybe hasn't heard it before, it's difficult to explain. But as soon as you hear it... that was a tree yelp. Like, you know it. Just there's a different intonation to it that definitely sets it apart.
And they're not making a lot of noise. I think if we were on the other side of that field, we wouldn't have heard those tree yelps. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is very, very quiet. It's not aggressive. It's just real soft. And I mean, how close were we?
Oh, we were
close.
Yeah, we shouldn't have set up. It's just how the timing worked out that morning, and why those birds still pitched into that field with us doing what we were doing at daybreak. I that's one of those, like, rather be lucky than good in that sense. Had we heard those birds when we were walking in, we would have never set up there.
Absolutely.
And then again, who knows if we would have got the opportunity at them. And but I mean, goodness, when they pitched down on those decoys that morning, that was just insane. That was a memorable morning, to say the least.
And I think I was actually agitated because I was like, oh my God, we're so close to these birds. These birds are going to bust us. And, you got Wreckham Ralph, a.k.a. Clay, putting up his blind. He's, doing whatever it is that he does to get ready, which usually constitute a lot of noise. Yeah. I love him to death, but he's noisy. He's about as stealthy as a bull in a china shop. But we pulled it off. I mean,
all 3 birds, man.
We sat down and, they started tree yelping, and I was like, oh man, we are really, really close to these birds. And like you said, they pitched right in the field. it couldn't have happened any better.
Yeah, I mean, they pitched in range. It's not even like they had to close distance. They were on top of us, and I let go of that first one, and then you guys just instant follow-ups. And golly day, man, like that was an exciting moment to see how it came. And it was, we had the whole scene that morning. You had a picture-perfect spring morning. It was beautiful out. It was quiet. You couldn't have asked for a better morning out there. And then with that result, having 3 birds down was just really an incredible moment. And those kind of wins, so to speak, in the turkey field, I mean, what stood out even beyond the kill in those moments was I feel like we took the time to appreciate it that morning.
Oh, for sure.
Like, we stayed in the field with the birds for a while. We took some pictures. We relived it, which we always do, some louder than others. There was some cell phone footage taken on a 1983 prototype cell phone that he still has. And and then I remember just going and sitting on the tailgate and all those pictures we took, and again reliving it multiple times that day, and that just solidified that hunt. And that was, I think, what solidified us moving forward as, partners out there hunting, is that experience where it's when turkey season comes around, it's, while I have other friends I love to hunt with, it's like we're going to be definitely all 3 of us hunting together every season, because there's something special that you build a bond with people out there chasing these birds.
Yeah, and for Clay and I, we've hunted together a while now, and I mean, he just brings this element of excitement. No matter what it is, we could be hunting dove, and it's just a good time. And for me, again, I watching people kill birds is just my favorite thing. A good friend of mine, Brad, who I deer hunt with, and he and I have very, very different philosophies when it comes to deer hunting. He's one of the most successful people I've ever seen deer hunting, but we have a different approach. But when we turkey hunt, man, we turkey hunt together, and he's usually trying to get me to shoot the bird, but he ends up killing the bird because I'm like, oh, I'm good, But it is just awesome to see, because Brad hadn't really killed a bird until I came in the picture. He was strictly a deer hunter, and again, he's one of the most successful deer hunters that I've seen. And the turkey thing was just kind of, he'd rather be fishing. And then once he got bit, and I took him out there, and he had that bird. And, hopefully Brad gets an opportunity to hear this. He did miss.
There it is.
The first bird that we had been on together. And this bird gave me a fit. Like, he gave me a fit. The first time I hunted him, he came into my buddy Scott and I. Scott was trying to kill him with a bow, and it didn't work out. And Scott realized it wasn't going to work out, and he's like, just shoot him with a gun. Well, he got weird, and he moved. And again, this is learning. This is a learning.
Yeah.
This is many years ago. So, and against my better judgment, Scott talked me into moving. So we moved like 100 yards. He stopped gobbling. It's like, okay, let's just go back to the decoys. Well, lo and behold, we're walking back down the road, and we had set up initially on the sandy turn.
Okay.
We called it S-turn, but it's a sandy turn. Well, lo and behold, we come walking back to the decoys. We get probably, 60 yards in the turn. He's in the middle of the decoy, strutted up, and we can't do anything. I'm just sitting there watching him strutting my Avian X decoys just round and round, and I'm super mad at myself at this point because I knew better. I was like, I can't believe I've gotten up. So he leaves. We set back up on the decoys. I'm angry. Another hunter in the adjacent property leaves, and you hear this truck bebopping and banging around, and he starts shock gobbling off the truck going down the dirt road.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, he's still around. And once that truck got him started, he stayed on again. I called him back, and I couldn't see the deal. He wouldn't come out of the brush. He was in some real thick stuff where he was just strutting around.
Yeah.
That's hunt one with this bird. So, Brad not having killed a bird, I said, hey, look, there's a bird over here. I think he's killable.
Mm-hmm.
That's the word I use.
Yeah, killable.
He's killable. So, Brad, I made him do some homework, and he went out there. He's like, hey, look, the bird's still roosted. This is kind of where he's roosted at. And I was like, all right, perfect. Yeah. It's a very similar setup. It seems that he's moved down the road a little bit. I got an idea. Perfect. We get out there, get set up, and we're set up right on the road on a good long stretch. It's real wide open. It's got a little bit of a crest in it. And sure enough, the sun comes up. It's picture perfect, and he starts gobbling. And I realize we're way too close to this bird.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and I'm telling Brad, I was like, hey, listen, we just got to be patient and figure out what he's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Decoys are set up, and we're not making a peep. I said, I'm not calling to him at all. I'm just going to let him do it.
Just let him do his thing.
And sure enough, he pitches right into the road about 50, 60 yards past the decoys and struts his way right to us. And lo and behold, he's coming this way. There's a silent gobbler coming from behind us.
Wow.
So, Brad and I are tucked up into this brush. We're really in a briar patch. Both of us are uncomfortable. But, that's turkey hunting sometimes. Yeah. And we're watching the strutter, and you hear that. And about 3 feet to our left, coming down the sandy road, is another gobbler.
Oh, my word.
Strutting past Brad and I. And I'm like, oh, interesting.
Didn't see that coming.
No, well, he was silent in the tree.
Yeah.
I mean, you always have that opportunity or that chance of there's another bird around who's not maybe as dominant, or maybe he's not as ready, or whatever reason he's not gobbling, but he could be there.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it's the one. It's the guy. It's the guy that I've already had the run-in with, because when I seen the other bird pitch past the decoys, I realized right away that's not the guy, but I didn't realize the guy was still around.
Yeah.
So the guy is coming down the road strutting, and I'm like, you can shoot whatever one you want, and Brad obviously chose the guy.
Yeah.
Well, he shoots at like 6 feet, and the guy, I think he flew to Ohio, but he's still around.
It's
because he goes
still a killable bird, maybe.
Yeah. He goes up, he comes down, and it's like he did it on purpose, though. He goes up, he comes down about 100 yards down the road. We just kind of see him soar.
Uh-huh.
And as soon as he hits the ground, he starts strutting and gobbling again. And I'm like, what just happened, Brad? And he's like, I don't know. I shot him. I'm like, no, you didn't. And he's down there gobbling and
carrying on.
Yeah, and the second bird is now down there, and they're marching away just as they can be, looking for a good time, just not at us. And there is no way to get in front of them.
Right.
Going down that woods road at that time, maybe now we can because the property's cut, but there was no way to cut them off. And
that was it.
There was no calling them back. So, again, we got up, and the guy, I call him the guy, and he beat me a second time. And we go back a third time, and he's there again, and he does his thing. And it's like he knew where I was every time on the road. And I was never in the same place. It would always vary. And there was hills and little rises that I could hide and tuck up behind. And he hit that road, and it's like he would know which way I was, and he would go the opposite way. The rest of the season, I focused in on him, and he beat me every single time. And it was tough, and we never killed that bird. To my knowledge, there has not been a bird killed over on that side of the property since then. So you're talking, the bird may not even be around anymore, but anything over on that side, I'm going to associate
Say,
with him.
That's that bird. His genes, his whatever.
He's got a shortcoming. I mean, and the birds are typically there. Last year we had the forest company come in, so there was some very drastic change in dynamics in the woods. So hopefully this year some things level out.
Right.
We did have some good sightings of some birds. I've already had some good sightings on birds. And, they've already been at it for a little while now.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think people realize that. I think my first picture of birds gobbling and strutting this year came the end of January.
Okay.
Like the last day or two of January. And then for like a week solid, I have one cell camera still out, top secret area. Yeah. But I had some birds that would roost there occasionally. And for a few weeks in the first part of February, and they were strutting and they were gobbling. I have a really good picture of two toms with their necks stretched out, just hammering away. You know exactly what they're doing. So hopefully with the woods have settled down now for a year, the birds that we did have, because we had such a great population of birds there, they'll be back in the numbers that they need to be. That bird and that property, that was the first year I hunted that property. And I got in there just on a turkey membership, and luckily Brad he and I did seal the deal later that season on a bird on the other side of the property, but it was good. And he and I have killed a bird together every year since.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
yeah.
And we always have a good time. And, Brad's ventured out on his own, him and a good friend of ours, Mike, last year. And I remember being at work at my desk, and they're like, hey, these birds they're not doing the right thing. They're calling
they have to do what we tell them to do.
They're calling for field advice in the middle of it. And I'm like, just sit down and be patient. And sure enough, that day they killed
That's
the bird.
awesome.
So.
And that's exciting especially guys that you work through the process with, and whether it's lucky or all technique or whatever the case may be, just having success, and it spurs you on, because it is incredible the transition that happens out of deer season, and you have kind of that lull between seasons, and then just how all your focus switches to these birds. And it has to do with, I think, the seasonal change, the temperature changes, and the whole piece of what it means to get out and chase these things in the spring. And now it's like, right now for me, deer are the farthest thing from my mind. It is just, I want to get out and chase these for a month, and then it all switches back again. It's crazy how I go through those transitions.
Yeah. Well, I still have a deer on my mind. And it is about the chase for me anymore. And I have gone seasons without even killing a bird, but all my friends have tagged out, or people I've gone with tagged out. A few years ago, Clay and I wanted to make sure his dad had a successful season, and I think both of us, other than the tom that Clay missed on opening day, I think the rest of the season was basically predicated on taking his dad and making sure he had a good time. And
I remember that day that he killed that bird.
Which one?
His dad, the one down at
in Mardella.
No, this was the one he killed at Judy's.
Oh yeah, that was opening day. Clay had missed a tom that day.
That same day?
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was the same day. I don't think I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, well, Army marksmanship, I guess. I don't
there
know.
It is.
Yeah, we had a very wary tom who, if I remember correctly, and Clay might remember a little bit better than I do, he didn't gobble. He didn't do anything. He just kind of popped up out in the field, and he looked around, didn't like the decoy set, kind of came halfway across, Miss Judy's field, and he just hemmed up, and there was nothing that I felt like we were doing wrong. It wasn't about it.
Yeah.
And he was probably on the high side of 50, maybe a little bit more, because there's a little rise in that field too, and you don't realize it. The middle of it has like a little hump, and I don't know if we just didn't pay attention to it or what, but Clay sent one, And
He only sent one?
I think I think
that doesn't sound right.
I know. I think the gun jammed on him, if I remember correctly, and that's why he hates the Remingtons.
Yeah, he did not like that firearm.
No, and he's moved on, and I still hunt with my Turkey 870 that I have, and it's modified. And I love it.
Yeah.
Just because he didn't know how to shuck a shell,
And there you go.
doesn't mean
don't blame the gun.
Yeah, I mean he's moved on from that gun, but yeah, he shot once and the gun jammed, and that bird he wasn't, he's quiet, and then later on that day, his dad ended up taking a Jake out of that field, which was his very first bird.
Yeah.
And it was an awesome experience, and I got 2 stories out of it: a successful hunt with Clay and his dad, and then Clay missing the tom.
Fuel. That's
I mean,
important.
Trust me, he will let me know if I miss, and I have missed out of that field. There's a few years ago that he and I went in the afternoon, and I've only killed a handful of birds in the afternoon. If it happens, you know it's going to happen. But there was a bearded hen, and she had a huge beard on her, but she was a hen. They usually have the real thin, and it was just, it was almost dragging the ground.
Wow.
It was pencil thin, but we didn't realize it until she was right on top of us. They just fed across the field, and Clay's like, dude, that hen's got a beard on it. And I think it was like, it may have been the last day of the season.
Right.
And I still had one tag to fill, and here in Maryland, you can take a bearded animal. It doesn't have to be male or female. And I had never killed a bearded hen. I've seen a handful of them, but I was like, man, well, I'm going to try her.
Yeah.
And it did not work out.
Got a little excited, huh?
I don't know what it was.
Did you yank the trigger on that one? Or
I'm not sure.
Just still don't know.
Yeah, because
just missed.
It could have been a just plain miss, but, as I've been calling him lately, Safari Bob, Clay had followed up. Let's put it that way. And she made it out of there. I mean, even after the guns of Navarone behind me, because I think he still had a tag as well. We both still had a tag, so it was kind of like, hey, look, the last couple of days we're going to try to make it happen, see what happens.
And that's a cool experience in and of itself with the bearded hen. I mean, not everybody gets to see one of those, but they're around. I mean, they
For sure.
definitely are around.
And I think we've seen a handful at Miss Judy's.
Mm-hmm.
Clay has killed, I think he's the 5th biggest scoring bird in Wacomico.
That property is just an incredible property.
Yeah, I mean that bird's a multiple bearded bird, and he did that on his own. And personally, I felt, he brought it right to me afterwards because I was stuck at work, and he went in the afternoon. It was an afternoon bird, which is difficult in itself. And Clay had such an incredible hunt that I would never want to try to recreate that with my own words, but just hearing him and seeing him be successful, it meant a lot to me.
And absolutely, it had to have.
And even though there's always a caveat with Clay, and
no doubt,
because I love him to death. He's like a brother to me anymore. But I don't think he realized that bird had that many beards until he brought him to me. I don't know if
I can see him being so amped up. It was
I was, and to be honest with you, when he pulls up and I go to the truck, I'm like, oh wow, the other beards were just so tucked up,
right?
And then when I started like getting the turkey prep for a picture, I'm like, Clay, do you have any idea what you've done here?
Right.
And he's like, well, okay. He excitable Clay.
Yeah.
And he ended up going through the process of getting the bird certified, which was, difficult in our area just because I don't think we have the NWTF footprint that some places have.
Right.
And he ends up getting it certified, and it's one of the biggest birds in the county, and even in the state, I think it ranks.
It's pretty high up there. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that was hurting his score was the weight.
Mm-hmm.
And you figured Clay killed that bird.
Yeah, it was a late season bird.
Yeah, if you're hunting in the afternoon in Maryland, it's the last 2 seasons. So he kills his bird late that's been run down because I think the bird only weighed 17 or
It was
18
under
pounds.
it was under 20. I remember that.
Yeah, it wasn't a heavy bird, but you could just see he had run himself down looking for hens.
Yeah.
And
No, he had been. I mean, something. I mean, you know he was.
I don't remember it definitely was not a 2-year-old bird. I mean, he was a mature gobbler. I would say on the being very, I don't know, conservative, you could say he was 3 at very minimum. But I think he was just a rundown bird. You know, they've been doing their thing at that point
For a while.
Yeah, and he's just putting the miles on, looking for hens, and he just happened to run into to Clay.
Oh, Clay, man. And no, that was I believe he did tell the whole story, but and as he shared that story, even the progression and the movement and how all the birds worked, and he is someone that truly appreciates that whole aspect of it, and he takes it all in, and that's pretty cool to watch new hunters. Even, you know, we were talking right before we went live here about just getting the youth out there, and how I have a family member who's, you know, looking to get into some hunting, and you've had the opportunity to actually, you know, take some youth hunters out and show them success in the field, and that's an incredible moment that, you know, I hope to experience this year.
Well, I hope so. I mean, but I have experienced the heartache with kids too, and turkey hunting is, you know, again, what we were talking about earlier. You have to have patience. You have to have perseverance to do that, and turkeys are tough. I mean, it's not like deer hunting.
No.
And I don't want this to sound bad, but deer hunting's kind of been elevated to the sense where you can go out there with an iPad with your kids and sit in the blind and make them comfortable and take away that experience of enjoying the outdoors. Turkey hunting, you really can't do that. You can't
sitting on that tree, and you know, the movement aspect is so critical. And you can set up blinds and stuff, but I mean, no, I'm not saying I wouldn't, but we're not much of blind hunters. We want to be out there sitting on the ground, and to level up the hunt. And I feel like that's always a goal, whether it's deer season for me or turkey season. It's like I'm always trying to level up what I'm trying to do to preserve that moment, to have the stories, to chase that adrenaline in the moment. You know, and that, you know, between the videography aspect of it, and that is going to be, I think there's going to be some epic footage happening this year of.
If we have footage and you hear what you believe is a wildebeest, just know it's our good friend Clay, and he does get excited, and I, you know, off your recommendation, I've gotten in, or I'm venturing down this road of videography. And hopefully I can contribute more to your show and your podcast with some of my videos. So, I mean, it's going to be a good time.
Yeah. No,
there's probably going to be a bloopers reel at some point.
That will be without a doubt. I think that will come down the pike. No, that's good. I have to go back, though. I interrupted you earlier. When did you kill your first turkey?
I don't remember. Well, that's terrible to say. I was with my good friend Dwayne, and he has taught me more about turkey hunting than anyone. And, you know, I think in life, even in hunting, we all have mentors or people we look up to. In deer hunting, my buddy Brad is somebody I look up to. And, again, we agree to disagree a lot of the times.
And that's okay.
And
that's okay.
We both have had varying success. He is probably one of the most successful deer hunters that I know. But Dwayne, a good friend of mine, Dwayne, has been hands down the most influential person when it comes to turkey hunting. And he took me. And, again, I didn't get into it until I was later in life because I just didn't have someone to take me. And I met Dwayne through my wife, and his wife worked together. And we went to a couple parties, and he's talking about turkey hunting. He's so passionate about it. And, I mean, he's like the Jedi to me. And Dwayne will ultimately, he invites me to go, and we go to a little piece of property I had, and we make it happen. And it was such an awesome time because I had such a difficult time at first because, you know, you're out there trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
And he puts so many different perspectives on things, like the being patient and when to call, when not to call, what calls to make, how aggressive you want to be. Over the years that I've hunted with him, and we've kind of grown apart because I've gotten more successful, and it's become the student trying to outdo the teacher.
There you go. Yep.
Dwayne and I only talk during turkey season. We've already started to talk one another, but he called this bird in, and it gave me the best show of my life, actually, because prior to the bird that I harvested coming out,
Mm-hmm.
we had two toms in the woods fighting each other. And if you've
Man.
never heard birds fight in person, it is just the most unbelievable racket ever. And
They're huge animals, man.
Yeah,
It's like,
but they're making these noises that you can recreate, but you don't think they're normal. And I just remember sitting there with my eyes wide open because I'm probably in my early 20s at that point, and I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me smiling because he knows what it is. And I'm like, what in the world is going on?
Yeah.
And these birds are just cackling, and you can hear the fans going off, and they got this fighting purr that they do. And it was just incredible. And I'm like, what? And we couldn't see the birds.
Right.
And he's just like, just be patient. The victor will come out to this field. And sure enough, I don't even think it was 5 or 10 minutes later, here he comes strutting out of the woods right where the fight was.
Wow.
And, I didn't give him an opportunity to think about going back into the woods.
Yeah.
Because at that point, that was the closest I'd been to one. And I had gotten every bit of experience all wrapped into one. The gobbling, the fighting, and now him spitting and drumming 15 yards from me,
Just like that,
dancing, and I don't think Dwayne even told me to shoot him. I did it.
Took matters into your own hands at that point.
it was a done deal. And from that point on, I was like, man, that was awesome. And I could never recreate that magic on my own for probably a good year or two, and then just hanging on his coattails for such a long time. And he would take me on public land, and we would experience a different bird there, a stubborn bird that's been called to. And
the personalities that these birds have, man, is just like
age and maturity for any wild animal, I think, plays a huge part in their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Jakes, we've all seen jakes. You can go out there with a spoon probably and make some noise,
and they'll come.
Some of them are going to come to you, but he taught me so much early on, and then as I ventured out on my own, and he was always and he still is my fallback guy to equipment and calls and stuff like that. And I mean, he takes everything. Like, I tried to mimic everything he did because, he was, in all intents and purposes, he was my mentor when it comes to that. And Dwayne is the one that showed me that. I mean, you might have a bird that responds to a mouth call.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What happens if he doesn't?
Yeah.
Well, you pull out a slate. Okay. Well, he's responding to that. Cool. That's what he likes.
Better have an arsenal.
Yeah, and I do. I mean, I talked about it outside. I carry 3 slates of different topping material, from copper over glass to slate over glass, or slate in general. I mean, it's just a different thing that I carry because, I mean, I've run into it time and time again that some birds are just weird. I mean, I don't know what other way to put it. Some birds like that certain pitch and that intonation that a box call comes out. In the last couple of years, I've used box calls more than anything, and for me, I love a good box call, and then it makes all the noises you need.
Yeah.
I
would say between a box and a slate call, probably slate as a surface, are probably 2 of the best calls for new hunters to get into, and where now you can make them sound amazing. I don't want to take away from that.
Right.
But the margin that you have with a call like that, I think, is a lot greater than obviously going to like a mouth call or even certain surfaces of a slate, or using glass. There's there's a lot of variation in there, but they tend to be, my experience is more forgiving for the novice caller.
Yeah, and I think some of the companies have done a real good job. I think it's HS Strut that makes like a cover plate for their slate call. And like if you're getting into it and you don't have someone showing you the ropes, there's so much stuff out there. But they make this cover that goes over the slate that teaches you how to make these
Oh,
noises.
nice.
So, it'll
Just like a diagram type thing, like an overlay.
Yep, and you just put it over there, and it restricts the slate obviously to just the movement of the friction call,
Yeah.
and the purring and the clucking and so many different
Technology and that stuff's incredible.
Yeah. And the mouth calls. I love a mouth call, but over the last couple of years, they seem to have gotten bigger, and I don't like the way most of the new ones fit in my mouth because the frame is thick, and even though I do my own trimming and I try to make it fit to my mouth, I haven't found one that I like in a long time. I do have a lot on order right now. My wife is like, "What is $40?"
Maybe don't worry about it.
But
it's a gift.
Typically, what I'll do is order a whole bunch, and then I'll cut them or try to make them fit and work. And every year I go through a bunch, and it works. It doesn't work. I like having a mouth call because sometimes you get in that tight pinch and they're close, and
yeah,
you just need noise. You need to make that noise, and some people are just awesome with them, and that's all they need. But
right.
I'm not one of those guys.
There's just so much variation in them. I think fit is really important when it comes to the mouth call that so 100%. Many people overlook. Not everybody wants to pick up the same one. If it sounds good for somebody, it may not sound good, and it may not have to do with the cut on the call or on the latex. It has more to do with that the actual fit against the roof of your mouth.
For me, that's all it is. It's the frame thickness and how it fits in the roof of my mouth. And I take an X-Acto knife and I cut all of them. And some of them don't work when they get cut a certain way. They become unbalanced, and
those manufacturers, they and a lot of the manufacturers, especially your non-custom calls, they have a challenge. They're trying to make a standardized sound for everybody, and that's just a difficult task.
And it's just, again, it goes back to what we said earlier. You got to find what's comfortable for you.
Right.
You have to field
Practice
testing,
it, use it,
and I use a lot of custom calls anymore. I think I have one zinc call, but everything else I use is custom made from a guy right here on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and I just love the way Ron's calls sound. I mean, and if I had an issue with it, I know he'd help me with it. They're not cheap.
Yeah.
But again,
they shouldn't be for something good and somebody puts that hard work into. And I'll just take a moment. This is one of those calls. Brandon just gifted this to me, a really cool custom piece here that will be sitting here in the studio. But tell me about this call.
So the call maker, his name is Ron Clough. He's Close Calls is his brand. He's right here on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, in the upper portion of it, and he makes custom calls. He does a lot of different things. He has a Facebook page. He does weekly auctions. He's just a salt of the earth kind of guy, and he does a lot of interacting with he calls it his flock. His close,
right on. Hey, that's
his
good.
Close Calls flock, and he does a lot of interacting with it. There's a lot of people that follow him and buy his calls because you watch these auctions and some of the custom work that he does. And this is one of the things that I bought from him a few years ago. And I've bought a ton of calls. This is just one of the custom calls I made. This one's not an actual call in the sense of going out in the field. It's a
display
piece.
call to show off the artwork of it.
And he is just, he makes such quality calls, and having that in your hand and having just messed with so many different calls. And, he does put some of his heart into a call that he makes.
Right.
And, it's not going down an assembly line being glued together and this, that, and another. And
Right.
not to say that some of those calls aren't great,
No.
and people have success with them. Supporting a local guy like this means a lot to me, and he's always done me well with calls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He's just again, salt of the earth kind of guy.
Yeah, no, it's phenomenal. No, it's a cool gift. I appreciate it a lot, and it's he obviously cares about the not only the product but giving back to turkey hunting and get more people to experience what turkey hunting is, because it's like a lot of hunting until you go out and actually experience these birds doing what they do in their environment that you're invading. It's difficult to articulate and storytell around it, and then when someone does get to experience that, having close encounters with these just awesome birds is really special. And it's what hooked me. I mean, that time that we had that bird beating up on that Jake in front of me and giving us that show, and we sat there for I think 20 some minutes before I decided to maybe go ahead and commemorate that memory with a bird, and it's how it goes.
I think that moment that most people become turkey hunters for life is when you get that bird strutting right to you and it's going to happen. And that, I mean, I can't describe that. I've killed some nice deer, and I've seen some nice deer, and they get me there. But when you have a bird that's doing that and he's screaming and just so much going on, and you're interacting with him, and I mean, it's something that for me I can't describe in words. It's just a feeling that I get that just is unbelievable because you've won. I mean, it is a challenge out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's when they definitely have the advantage by far in
100%.
in that moment. And I mean, I remember the 2 years ago, the first bird I ever called in and killed. I was with Clay that morning. And, I mean, to bring that bird 300 yards across a field and watch him be committed and come in and just pull everything off, and that success is a pretty cool moment to step into. Yeah. I mean, we kind of, in a way, keep rehashing it, but there's so many ways to tackle the emotion of the moment and what it means as a hunter to have success against a difficult species.
Yeah, and there's a bad rap out there on turkeys. They're dumb animals. Yeah, well, I beg to differ.
Yeah,
they may do some bird brain type stuff at times, but you know what? They live in the woods, and they're being hunted every single day by some type of predator, whether it be us, a fox, a coyote, something raiding their nest, a raccoon, a possum, anything. I mean, they're being hunted and tracked, and they live out there and winning. One of my most memorable hunts is calling a turkey across the blacktop road out of someone else's field into ours, and it was just a cool experience to know that I beat him. I won. He came across the blacktop road to come see what was going on. Yeah. And, it was a little bit of, I like to call that skill that day.
There you go.
Because it was a late morning hunt, and he answered to a mouth call that day, and he came right to it. So yeah. But we watched him cross the blacktop road, hop the ditch.
Got to really want to be there.
Yeah. And I'll tell people too, if you go in the late afternoon and the early morning and you get a bird to fire up, your chances are good. Yeah. Just be patient. Don't overcall. He'll start gobbling on his own, but I always, man, that warms my heart when we go at 10, 11 o'clock and we get a bird to gobble just once. Yeah. I know he's
receptive at least.
Yeah, he's going to come in, I would say 70% of the time.
Yeah.
He's going to just come and check out what's going on. That may be his final days. But if I can get into and I think that's one thing I'm good at. I can get a bird to gobble in the middle of the day. Yeah. No matter
you
what.
Better be ready. Chances are pretty good. Well, what's the – are we taking the guns out or the bows out first?
Clay and I have talked about this. I am going to try to kill a bird with a gun the first couple days. I mean, nothing is a done deal, but I mean, we have the property between the three of us
Yeah.
that I think we can do it, and after that, it's going to
Be
be
switching gears, and we're gonna make it happen. One of us is gonna get it done this year, and hopefully we'll have it all on video to show for it. It's gonna be a challenge, but it's gonna be fun, man. Like, no, we're gonna get out. I mean, if we can triple down on day one, we got. I know Clay was out this morning doing some scouting. We picked up another property this year for the three of us, and we have some spots. And I mean, we have that huge tract of public land here in Maryland that we have an opportunity to hunt, and so it's you can't say there's not an opportunity to get out there here in Maryland. Sure. We definitely have a lot to offer when it comes to turkey hunting, and it's good, man. I'm looking forward to it and to be out there with you guys.
I'm hoping our shift from first to second gear here happens quick. You know, Clay's put a lot of homework in already with some cameras. I have some cameras out. You know, I have access to a large piece of property in Somerset County, which, you know, has always produced birds for us before. I know Clay killed a monster of a bird out of that property a few years ago off of just
He got it done, man.
He did, but I don't know if he's ever told you that story. We were walking back to the truck, and the bird walks out in front of him. So, I mean,
that's that lucky part.
Yeah, that's. I think the percentage varies for some people. 75% maybe strategy for you and I, and you know,
it just falls in his lap.
Clay, it might be 75% luck. And then 5% strategy. But I don't know. I mean, he does get it done, and I can't argue with field success because, I mean, he is successful, and, you know, and I love seeing him harvest an animal.
Yeah, 100%.
Deer hunting,
Anything.
You know, just we've been duck hunting, and he gets wound up, and it's just
and as the viewers can tell, even though he's not here during this podcast today, he's very much here because he's a part of the hunting experience for us. So, no, man,
I look forward to both of his kids being able to hunt and seeing that interaction too, because he's such a good, involved dad, and he's going to introduce them to the outdoors.
Without a doubt. He already is.
Yeah,
man.
Whether Miss Anna, who runs around the house gobbling because he gets her so wound up, whether she falls into it or his new son Adam, I mean, it's going to be just a blast to see that.
100%.
I'm looking forward to it. And even with your kids as well, I think just that moment is going to be awesome. And if, you know, I end up having kids, whatever, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. No, that's a whole different season of life and experience, and you know, and I mean, it's just it's a different level. It's like you love teaching other people to be in the outdoors and hunt, and then when you can do that to someone that you care about so much, and to pass on that legacy of hunting is so important. Which, I mean, that's the whole reason for the Interrupted Outdoors even existing, is I want these stories and the passion behind it to live on beyond just the moment in the field or just the journal that gets written down, is because that's really special. I mean, you figure the amount of time when we're all together outside of the field and we share these stories and talk about this stuff and you relive it. And I mean, for this show, I hope for all of you watching, this is about getting excited, and hopefully it's spurring on stories, and maybe you think, oh man, I had a story similar to that, or I remember something that it just kicks something off and spurs that you go right back to that moment. And those are the things that are really special times and important for us to remember. So it's pretty incredible. No, there's a lot of tactics. There's so much strategy in the process, and why we hunt and what we do and everything that goes into that. It's fun to sit down and then just get excited knowing we're 2.5 weeks away, and then you feel like it's here and it's gone like that. And it's like, just be present and appreciate the time you get to be out.
Again, I mean, thinking last year, you and I toughed it out to the end, and it was tough. And just knowing what this adventure is going to be like with these bows, I mean, I think we're hopefully we're not in a similar situation of having to tough it out to the last day to fill a tag, but you know, it does happen that way, and
it gets warm here.
But I think the support system that we have between the two of us, and even with Clay, because talking to him this morning, he understands the desire that you and I have
To
to
do it
harvest
with a
an
bow.
animal with a bow, and
Mhm.
he's not quite there yet. But I do think one day
Yeah.
he might be there. But
Either way.
it's again, either way, it
No,
is
but
exciting
he supports us in that,
for sure.
and that's what's really cool is not leaving each other behind and tackling something. It's like you guys have entertained me with the video stuff, and but it's what's ironic about it is Clay's the one that's been videoing stuff forever,
Yeah.
with some interesting gear, however.
I mean, I didn't know JVC still made VHS test tapes to put into a camcorder.
That's it.
I didn't even know some of the things that he had existed.
But he's been videoing hunts way longer than I have. I got to give him that.
Yeah, and he and I killed a 10-pointer with him one time, and he videoed it, and I will guarantee you that he still has that footage. Granted, you may not
hide
be able
it in the archives.
You
probably
may-
won't play on any modern technology.
you may not be able to decipher what's going on other than
But something happened. In
the
that video.
yelling that he and he was so excited for me because that was probably our second or third year really starting to get together and hunt together, and we had put a lot of work into this piece of property I used to have, and we were very familiar with this deer, and that moment that he came out, I will just never forget. Clay and I just like instantly was like, oh my God, it's him.
Right.
And I ended up harvesting that deer, and he was just so happy.
Yeah.
And I think that is what you need to find when you do find hunting friends or partners. Is like you need to find those people that are excited for you.
Yes.
And who are there to support you. Because even today, when we were out there shooting and carrying on and looking at equipment and stuff, it's like you and I are trying to figure out how to do it together.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are we going to be able to figure this out together? Is it going to work together?
Right.
And it's not like, hey, Steve, I'm going out here to just try this on my own.
Right.
Now, is there going to be a time that I might be on my own? Yeah, but
right, and that's okay too. But there's a mutual respect within our hunting, and that it's about being successful with the challenge. So this year we've laid out that, okay, we're upping the ante by bow hunting. Oh, we're going to take it even a step further by trying to capture this on film to solidify that moment and to relive that moment and that memory. And so all of that come together, whether we both get one or whether one of us gets one or whether we get close and miss one, it all goes to the memory and the experience and enjoying life and being present and everything that I want out of life. And ultimately, what this does is it helps us better mentor, whether it's our own families or taking that other hunter out there, and it's passing it on. It's giving people that reprieve from the rat race of life and just where society's at. And to take this time on a Saturday we're sitting here talking hunting, and we have a million other things to do, but the enjoyment of having a conversation like this, it's resetting for me. It's that recalibration of now, okay, whatever other things I need to do today is cool because this was just an enjoyable time, man.
Right.
So.
I agree. I mean, we talked about it outside a little bit. You and I have been in the trenches at work together, and to go outdoors and do what we both love and turn that off. It means the world to me. And like deer hunting has become a process for me now that I've started to hunt specific deer, and I could talk about that for ages.
Oh, we will.
But it's like the process of being outdoors and the process of preparing all my hunting is just so relaxing to me.
Yeah.
And doing it, whether it be with you or with Clay or another good friend of mine, Patrick, who deer hunts with me, I mean, it is just, when I go and I do it, it's just, I mean,
it's therapy in its own. It's important to be able to step away from the things that that cause stress in your life, to be able to decompress in those moments. And I agree wholeheartedly that it's a special place for more than the kill, more than just the hunt in and of itself, more than just the hike. It helps me walk through life in a very different way.
Yeah.
And the more I try and learn and find the words, I often say hunting for the words, it helps me better articulate my purpose, my meaning, and how I'm able to better show up for my family and my friends.
Right.
And those are the things that I want to better understand, and not just say, that I'm that bloodthirsty hunter out there just chasing this stuff. There's a much deeper piece of this.
Again, for me, the process has become more, other than the actual harvest itself, but the process is so more important to me
Mm-hmm.
to make my deer herd better, my turkey population better, like being a conservationist and doing this process of making things better.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is, to me, if you're just out there hunting to hunt, unless it's for sustenance or food or whatever,
Right.
and you live in the great up north, where Zach and the big country people,
that's right.
Yeah, don't worry, I've listened to them talk too, and,
Yeah.
and you listen to Zach and his dad, and they're up there, and some of those hunts are, people in Maine, they're miles away from any kind of civilization. They're hunting
it's
for
very different
sustenance and survival. But if you're not enjoying the process, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, get out there, enjoy the process of hunting, enjoy the process of preparing to hunt, enjoy the process of the after the hunt. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if I had more time, I would probably be into more things. But we talked about it earlier, and neither one of us in our daily life have enough time. And I admire you doing this show, how you have the time, knowing what you do for a living, doing a very similar job. I don't know how you have time, but every time I see you, we always fall back into the hunting, and we always talk about the trials and tribulations, and we always talk about Clay and his disasters.
Right.
But, we both enjoy it so
Yeah.
much, and I don't think anyone will take that away from
Well,
us.
you need to make time for it. I tell people I make time for hunting as much as I make time for working out.
Right.
And people say, well, Steve, that's a pretty big jump. You're talking about health and wellness. For me, there is a very real health and wellness
Absolutely.
piece to hunting for me, because it's my passion, and it's that resetting and recalibration that I say that if you're going to make time to go to the gym, while I'm going to do those things too, for me, I'm going to make time to go do this.
Yeah.
If I wasn't doing this, I would need to take a hard look at what I could do for the mental health aspect that would give me what being in the outdoors, and specifically hunting and fishing, does.
Yeah. There's not too many things on this earth like waking up with the woods on a spring day, and you have your bobwhite quails out there just going off, and you have the birds and the bugs and just everything. Even in the fall, I mean, I had one of the most incredible hunts that I've ever had deer hunting this year, and I didn't harvest anything. I think it was on Halloween. I know you and I had talked about it, and I was like, dude, it's a circus in here.
Mm-hmm. And then
The dogs.
circus.
But seeing deer chase each other, and the grunting and the shredding of the trees and the making of the scrapes, and that day I seen a very shootable deer that was probably in the 150s. It did not happen.
Yeah.
But I mean, everything that happened that day was magical. I mean, it's that time of the year in the woods when it comes to deer hunting. You want to be there.
Yep.
And it happened for me on Halloween. It was just nonstop action from the minute I could see the ground until the minute I got back out of there. It was just, I literally had to leave my stuff there and sneak out, because it was just, this is not going to stop. I need to just,
at some point,
I just got to sneak out of here. So I kept my stuff in the tree to come back later that afternoon, but it was nonstop. I mean, I had deer running by me as I was walking out.
Yeah,
so.
and I will hunt for years on end to experience days like that. And those days come, every couple years.
Yeah.
But you keep doing it. You keep chasing those moments and enjoying everyone in between.
For sure.
And yeah, you're gonna have those adrenaline days where it's just like that was the best day in the woods. But I'm not gonna say every day is the best day in the woods because I've come out of the woods frustrated and upset, and I'm not gonna push it to that kind of cliche statement because I've had bad days in the woods. But for the most part, it is an amazing time out there that just pushes you to want to step back out there again.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, man. Well, I think that's a good place to end, and we'll definitely, hopefully, with Clay on the next one, bring another turkey update, whether it's halfway through or at the end. And you'll be seeing the footage from the episodes that are going to be coming out here. Hopefully, we can keep on it and get a lot of good footage for you also.
It should be very much entertaining. I mean, I don't know if you want to put a warning at the bottom of it. Yeah, there's going to be a weird wildebeest type noise. It's just Clay, everyone.
You're going to have that on your social media. You're going to have to uncover the video, and not because of the kill probably, but because of the
excitement level.
The level of excitement. Yeah, we'll leave it there. So cool. Hey, well, thanks, brother, for taking the time today, and we'll be seeing you all real soon. So thanks for tuning in today.